My entire photographic life, I've been fascinated by talking with photographers about how they train themselves to be better photographers. Everyone assumes the photographic career is essentially the process of learning while simultaneously producing. We take workshops, we read books, we do online tutorials. But the question that fascinates me more than any other in this regard is, what do we study? Leading all other candidates, technique is so far out in front as to have lapped all the other topics several times. Find for me, anywhere on the internet you can, a photography site with a tutorial on graphic design or aesthetics. They're there, but you'll have to search a long time before you find them. Compare this to any other art school curriculum. Painters begin with drawing, which always begins with perspective, one of the quintessential graphic design lessons. To draw a mark on paper that correctly employs perspective, one needs to know about perspective and how to create it. I suppose, fortunately for us photographers, our camera lenses create perspective without our needing to know anything about it. This image by Shaun O'Boyle is a classic example. If he never studied perspective in his life, he could still successfully make this photograph because his optically based equipment would create the perspective lines for him. What's unfortunate in this scenario, however, is that without an understanding of graphic design, he may not have recognized this as a potentially compelling photographic subject. He may not have chosen the position he did, slightly right of center, nor pointed his camera in the direction to place the convergence point where it is. Perhaps he made this composition with full knowledge of graphic design. Perhaps he made this composition intuitively, with no knowledge of graphic design whatsoever. We would never know without asking. However, as an art-making strategy, which do you think would serve him better in the long run? Employing well-learned knowledge or relying on intuitive luck? This photograph exhibits another classic element of graphic design, the repeated pattern. The photograph is filled with repeated patterns, with one important exception, the floor. The fact that the floor does not have a repeating pattern is a technique that offers an important counterpoint, a recurring theme found in graphic design, to the repeating patterns. Point and counterpoint, balance and rhythm, eye patterns and contrast are among the many lessons from the world of graphic design we can see in this photograph. I might go so far as to say that an image like this is so dependent on its graphic design that it is essentially a graphic design. Would it be reasonable to propose that along with zone and tone, pixels and profiles, raw files and software training, it might be useful for all of us to spend a little of our training time on elements of graphic design, aesthetics, typography, color theory, and all the other non-photographic bits of wisdom that permeate the other visual arts. One simple way to do this is to broaden our lines of study just a bit and consider the other visual arts. There are the great history tomes like Jensen, but I've always found it more useful to read books about paintings and other art forms that are more like, well, this Looking at Images project, one that examines individual paintings and comments on them rather than the larger trends and schools of painting. Another book I love, What Great Paintings Say, it's actually 2 volumes available independently, by Rosemarie Hagen and Rainer Hagen, are a good place to start. There's a lot to learn from those other disciplines and media that are far too often left out of the typical photography curriculum.